All right, everybody, welcome back to Wednesday's episode of Top Tier Podcast. Today is August 24th, 2022, and as usual, we're here to talk about current topics. We got a lot of crazy topics today. I don't know if you guys heard about the NASA releasing audio from a black hole. You know, we're about to go in on that because that shit was creepy as hell. So my name is Pale Poppy, got the chosen one, and we're back to give you Wednesday's episode of Top Tier Podcast.
Episode 7, baby. Episode 7.
Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
We started with Game of Thrones. Are we allowed to call it
Yep.
Game of Thrones?
It is because it is Game of Thrones. Like,
Are we allowed
it's
to,
just
though?
the prequel.
Are the fans going to get mad if we start saying Game of Thrones when we're referring to...
Let's call it House of Dragons just to keep it separated so we know.
I kind of want to
Fate
call it
Zero
Hot
or
D.
Stay Night, you know.
I like that,
We're
Hot D.
We're gonna call it Zero.
Hot Wee. Hot D, season premiere, episode. Thoughts?
It felt like we just got dropped in season 3 and then we rewound the clock 200 years. Like the pacing and everything. It just felt very a fusion of season 1 and season 2. I'm liking it so far. I didn't have any high expectations at all. It was a very solid
Really?
first episode. It was just Game of Thrones. It was just like brothels and dragons and some dude getting his head bashed in, and you know, people are already plotting bullshit behind the scenes. And,
Balls getting cut off.
you know, balls getting cut off. It's just Game of Thrones. It literally packed in like it was like the most Game of Thrones episode I've ever seen.
I'm so
like,
sorry
everything
for
was
the
in there.
listeners, but I forgot to say spoiler warning because this is
Spoiler
heavy
warning.
spoilers. If you haven't seen it, first of all, you're not a real fan. I'm just kidding. But if you haven't seen, this is spoiler warning. I'm gonna give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Now we can get back to the spoils. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was just good old Game of Thrones. I mean, like you said, the Game of Thrones has already begun. I mean, that's what it is. That's called the Game of Thrones.
They even
for a reason.
said like they've said this in the main series. They're saying it's in the prequel. Like the Iron Throne is the most dangerous seat in the realm. Like if you're on that seat, you better expect there's 50 million dudes plotting on your downfall at all times.
Everyone's going
They're
for
putting
it.
shit in motion to take you out. So we know what it is. You know, it's just the prequel. Like, did we need it? I'm not a big fan of prequels because they always retcon shit. Shit always gets retconned in prequels. But, you know, the Game of Thrones TV show was so ass, we probably do need some retcons.
You thought that Game
How
of
they
Thrones...
ended it was so ass, we probably do.
You thought that Game of Thrones Season 8 was just, like, so bad to where it ruined everything that they can possibly do moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, if
Yes?
they're doing prequels, it works. It's fine. If they're doing prequels, cool. They can make some great prequel stories.
Oh, I see
But
what you mean.
anything after what they did that last season is ass. It's like the same. It's the main reason why Star Wars, they're focusing so much on the original trilogy era and the gap between. Nobody cares about that new trilogy. They're not going to be doing any spin-offs of that new trilogy. That shit was ass. So, it's the same thing.
I mean,
Don't be surprised if you see a whole docket of prequels about this era of Game of Thrones. And nothing about what happens after.
I think that whatever they make is going to be gold. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I don't know. But I think whatever they make is going to be gold because it's Game of Thrones. And I think that I don't think you can go wrong with it. It's the same reason why shows like House of Cards does so well. Or, you know, what are other shows like that? Just like these types of shows where it's just a bunch of corruption and it's just a bunch of behind the back just backstabbing and things like that. People love like the type of like murder flicks and things like that. People like that shit. It's kind of like, that's why things like Knives Out, that's what it's called, right? Knives Out.
That was a great, Knives Out.
People-
I love whodunits.
Yeah,
That was
it's
very
essentially
solid
like, it's
whodunit.
like essentially a serial soap opera
I might
whodunit.
watch it tonight, actually. I'm gonna watch it tonight, actually.
Damn, I inspired. Who's? You're welcome, Universal. You're welcome, Universal.
Yeah, that movie was nice. I love that movie. I've only seen it one time in theaters. I thought it was amazing, and I just haven't watched it since.
But with House of the Dragons, I think that I'm really looking for the only thing, because I'm surprised you said you don't. I think you're lying that you said you don't have high expectations for it, because otherwise,
Nah, bro. We literally talked like a week ago, and I told you I'm not watching that bullshit. And then I was just like, when the day it came out, we were talking, I was like, you know what? I'll give it a chance. We just went and watched it.
But if you didn't have high expectations, then so you're saying you don't have high expectations for this particular series?
Well, I didn't have it, and then I saw the first episode, which made me kind of feel like it felt like the writing, the pacing, it felt very much like peak Game. I don't know about peak Game of Thrones, but it felt very solid. Like it felt like we just got dropped into some very solid season 2, season 3 Game of Thrones. Like that's how it felt. And those are pretty good seasons.
You have any characters that you might think that you're kind of into so far?
I don't really know the names yet, dude.
Neither do I.
I don't know the names.
I'm gonna look them up.
The main character who looked like great grandma Daenerys.
Great grandma.
You know what I'm talking about.
Great grandma.
That great grandma Khaleesi. Great grandma Khaleesi, because they look. You know, they all kind of look similar, but she kind of. I don't know. Whatever she's wearing looks like something that she used to wear on Game of Thrones.
It's because of the gray hair or the silver hair or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe it's just the silver hair.
It has to be.
But she's the heir. It's like she got named the heir. I think she's gonna have a very interesting character arc.
Rhaenyra?
I think the brother.
Is that her name?
I guess that's her name. The brother who was like cutting testicles off and was like at whorehouses and
Damon?
brothels and stuff. Yeah, he
like
seems
him.
like he's gonna be an interesting character because you already know he's gonna try to kill his brother. That's obvious. He's just like, oh, he fucked me over. I'm gonna go Game of Thrones route and plot his downfall from within. Like he's gonna do all. He's gonna do all that.
You know what was weird? They mentioned a lot of different, not a lot. They mentioned a few different houses that we're familiar with. They mentioned Stark when everybody was bending the knee. They mentioned Stark.
And Baratheon.
They mentioned Baratheon.
Harley.
They mentioned the Vale. They didn't mention the Lannisters.
That's true.
Why?
But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me not understanding the lore. Are they like more of a new money kind of family? Or remember, I haven't seen Game of Thrones in years.
And I don't know. I'm not familiar with the lore like that either. But maybe it's because they're
Are
plotting
they like
something.
relatively new money?
It could be.
Or they're plotting something.
It could be, but I think they're plotting.
If they aren't they like relatively new money? Isn't that like I know they were maybe not because I remember they were like a very established family, but this is 200 years before. We don't know if they got famous like 150 years ago is when they start really getting prominence, or I don't know.
It could be. I think that probably just what I'm really just excited to see is the fucking dragon fights. I said it last week or last pod. I'm really just excited to watch the dragon fights. We've only seen 2 dragons so far, and they said that there's supposed to be 9 of them, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see that. I just want to.
And
yeah.
There's like a whole controversy over the black guy with the he has like
No
the white
way.
dreads.
What is it?
I saw that on Twitter. Just racist being like, this is historically inaccurate. I'm like, so in a show about flying dragons and magical diseases and dudes getting resurrected from the dead,
bro, come on.
You're angry about a random black man in the show.
Are people actually? I haven't seen that. People actually talked about that.
Yeah, but that's a given, dude. It's a whole bunch of dudes running around talking about it's not historically accurate. That's woke, and it's just people just being racist. It's just like they don't want black people to be in fantasy, and it's literally fantasy.
They don't want black people to be in anything.
They don't want us to be in anything. Like, why is it so? Is he a? What are they?
He's a lord.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is he a what is their family name? Like all the people with white hairs. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. Like this, I should know this. It's like forgetting who the Uchiha are in Naruto. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are they? Like that special family. But what is the family? The whole show is about them.
I don't know.
I don't know why. I just had a straight up brain fart.
I have no clue. I don't know what you're referring to.
All the characters in the show who have white hair. The show is about their family.
Targaryens?
Yeah, Targaryens. It's
He's
like, I don't know
married to a Targaryen.
Is he not like a mixed Targaryen? Why does he have white hair?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't think he's a Targaryen. Let me look at his name.
That's his children are Targaryens. They have to be, right? Or maybe
because he's married to the wife, who's a Targaryen. Yeah. His last name is Valerian. He's a Valerian. Oh, so he's a Valerian. Remember they were saying that. They were explaining that. The Valerians and the Targaryens, how they go back and shit. Okay. You know what I think? I think we need to be, his name is Hightower. No. Yeah. Hightower, the dude who was like the hand of the king. I think we need to be looking out for him. I think he's gonna plot something.
But the Hand of the King is always on some shit in Game of Thrones. So that's like you always have to be watching them. There's always an interesting storyline with the Hand. So we definitely need to be watching out for him.
Remember, I said it. I was like, oh, he's pimping out his daughter. He's trying to pimp out his daughter.
Which is like, but this is Game of Thrones, man. Like nothing surprises me on Game of Thrones.
I thought it was so fucking. We watched it together. Like I thought it was so fucking nasty. It really upsetting watching them just cut into the wife to have the child. That scene was really unsettling. It was really
That's how much he wanted a son. That's how much he wanted a son.
I think it's kind of weird that Game of Thrones is allowed to get away with that type of shit. Like, what do you have to do to make it an X rating?
I mean, it's HBO and it's their own platform. Like, no one's gonna tell them they can't put it on there. It's like Netflix. I've seen shows on Netflix that no warning. You just get on there and it's just nudity, cock and balls.
But there's still
everything.
censorship. I forget what it's called. I forget what the company is called, but they still censor everything. There has to be there's a rating. What is it called? Like the RAA or something?
I don't know. I know for gaming it's ESRB, but I don't know what it is for like TV shows and movies. Like they're gonna rate it. Like you're gonna know it's rated R, but they're not gonna censor it. Or they're gonna know it's like a rated R. You know what I mean? Like TVMA, but they're not gonna censor it.
Is TVM because you can do like an 18 thing, right? Or no, maybe that is
something
MA.
like that.
Maybe that is.
I don't know, dude. Like I've seen a lot of Netflix original shows that just have straight up nudity. No different if you got on Pornhub or something. That is just like appalling. Dog. Yeah,
like they castrate people, they rape people, they cut pregnant women open, and it's just rated mature. That's a bit much. That just seems like a bit much to me. I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to the rest of that show.
No, I can see it. I can honestly see it being good, especially we got newer writers. I can honestly see it being very solid. So far, it seems like they really captured the spirit of it. Like that whole jousting fight felt very season 1. Like they really nailed the tone of it because it was basically the same thing.
I love the way they do introductions, man. I was saying it when we were watching it, like just the way that they kind of just make it seem like it's just natural. Like you should already know who these people are. They don't spend a lot of time, and a lot of other shows they like will follow a character for so long just to establish who the character is. They'll show the character doing like meaningless shit, cooking eggs or something, taking a shower or some shit. Like we don't need to see any of that shit. We're gonna
drop us into their life like we have an invisible camera and just start recording.
Right.
That's what they did basically.
That's exactly what they did. Because I mentioned that like when we first were introduced to the main girl, I just forgot her name again. Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra. When we were introduced to her, it was just like, oh, she's the main character, isn't you? I think you asked that. You were like, isn't she the main character? And it was
she seems like she is.
You wouldn't know because they just dropped you into it and they just went on. It was real quick. I'm really looking forward to the rest of that show. And they have multiple seasons in works. So
which, they getting their money, dude. I have a thing now where I'm kind of getting tired of the cash grab prequels, but if it's good, I'm going to tune in, and that means they're getting their money. So
everything's going to be a cash grab. We have a topic about that coming up later on. Where do you want to move to next? Gen Z? No.
Let's do let's take that one.
Dennis Rodman, Kevin Samuels.
Let's do Kevin Samuels. We kind of tie that into like Andrew Tate.
Kevin Samuels, man. Kevin Samuels has been trending for a while now since his death.
Yeah, dude, he's having his when artists when they die, their music sales go up like 10,000%. He's having that moment right now.
And honestly, it's kind of like the Game of Thrones because everybody sees that the Iron Throne is open for the most misogynistic, the most sexist, who could do it the best, who could take that Iron Throne, and everyone's coming for it.
That's the crazy thing about this whole era is that, like you said, there's a power vacuum, and Andrew Tate, he's like the new Kevin Samuels, bro. Like, it's just in terms of just that whole kind of like manosphere kind of, dudes, red pill kind of space. He kind of slid in and just went gangbusters.
Came out of nowhere. Came out of straight up nowhere. Who the fuck is he? I know that we had a friend who was trying to explain exactly where he came from. He was a UFC fighter, did a reality TV show for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it just like blew up on social media platforms. But like, who is he? Like, what does he do?
I mean, telling you, that's the most I know about him, man. I've watched a couple clips that were appalling.
What was he saying? I tried to look at some of the clips and I couldn't. I literally looked up Andrew Tate sexist, or maybe I looked up like Andrew Tate controversy or something like that. Like I tried to look at his quotes and I couldn't find anything. The funny part.
I don't even really. Oh my bad, you got it.
The funny part was that everything that was on YouTube was labeled like, or was titled like, motivational clips, or Andrew Tate speaks the truth, or like Andrew Tate wisdom quotes, things like that. They have him in a high regard. Like something's wrong with y'all intellectual thinkers. The people that you guys regard as thought leaders, you guys need to adjust that, because these men are not speaking wisdom. These men are just speaking from like some type of privileged, like 1830s state of mind. I don't know what y'all see in that that's just like, oh yeah, like I totally agree with that, like that should be a mainstream thought. I don't know what you guys see, but y'all need to fix that and quick. You were saying?
Yeah, make sure I'm looking it up, because I watched like a little mini doc about him that a lot of people been talking about. That's how like when I first heard about him, when our friend of ours broke it down, and I just was looking it up and I saw this documentary. It was called The Dark Reality of Andrew Tate's Rise to Fame, and they just kind of get into all kinds of creepy shit, like how he has like this group of like these fucking weirdos. I don't even know what they are called. Like he has like this like little round table, like they have a name of like this group of guys that are like, on like one of them, they're all like specialists in some kind of field, and they kind of get into how like we're in the beginning of phase 1. And the whole documentary kind of compares him to other cult leaders like Jim Jones's and those kind of dudes, and how their rise to fame, their escalation is very similar to his. And I thought it was very interesting.
That's what they feel like, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it kind of feels like he's like building to like, it kind of feels like a cult. Like, you know, a lot of people just want to feel like they're a part of something, and they just go crazy over certain people.
What is it in the culture right now? Is it just that we have a bunch of cucks in the culture right now in terms of men and dating culture? That just like everybody's gravitating towards these types of misogynist platforms, people that have these misogynist platforms. We saw a few months ago, earlier in the year, the Fresh and Fit dudes. They had a video that blew up.
I hate those dudes so much, bro. I hate those dudes so much.
And they were talking about like, oh yeah, like women don't do this and women that don't do that, we can't have those women. And, I mean, they mentioned other racial things, but that's not really what I'm talking about. That's on top of it.
Cooning and talking shit about Black Americans.
But really, just in terms of women in general, they're always just like, oh yeah, like we don't date women that don't service us. And well, they say the same thing. It's kind of like in kindergarten when it's like, well, Jimmy, why did you push Vanessa? Vanessa took my pencil. It's kind of like, it's weird shit. Like they're trying to justify, like, well, she did it first. Like, but you're talking about how you're high value and how you're the strength of the relationship. But then it's like, well, we only do this. We only have this mindset because they have it first. They did it first. So we need to do it too. What is that?
A lot of it, man, just to me feels like they're marketing towards incels. These dudes, I swear to God, do not live up to a quarter of what they spew and bullshit on the mic.
What part?
A lot of it is just that, well, that whole like that. How they talk about women, she needs to service me, and she needs to, and you need to, if I don't call back, I don't text back. Like they just talk crazy. You know what I mean? Like they act like they just like, yeah, you need to be a high value man. You shouldn't even talk to a woman. If she not coming to you, you ain't doing something right. Like, you know what I mean? Like they just I kind of feel like a lot of what they talk about, they don't actually practice what they preach.
And people said the same thing about Kevin Samuels too.
They probably be sliding the DMs, be simping the DMs. Doing all the same shit but they're like marketing towards, like they're really marketing towards themselves, but they're packaging a product that there's some kind of alpha male who's on some kind of different time. You know what I mean? They're playing a character.
They are playing a character because they said the same thing. There were rumors of the same thing about Kevin Samuels. People were trying to expose Kevin Samuels for doing the same exact thing. Oh, this man isn't what he preaches. This man isn't like a business owner. This man doesn't have the money that you guys think he has. This man was out here selling. I mean, I'm not gonna, speak bad on the dead, but people expose these people for who they really are. They probably are just playing we were talking about reality TV just a second ago. These people that have these platforms just trying to fit into a role of what they feel is gonna get views, what they feel is gonna get, viral acclaim and things like that, viral moments.
Yeah, that's 100% what they're doing. Like, even with Kevin, like, I can't, I'm not speaking on the dead. Only thing I thought, and remember, this might have gotten cleared and disproved. I haven't done a lot of research on this, but something I always thought was weird about Kevin is that, he talked about, like him working as like a high-level salesman, how he went to school in engineering, and people looked up. You can verify people's college degrees. They were never able to verify that. New information might have come out, but see, that was the one where I was always kind of like, all right, this guy's capping a lot.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of even lying about that? So what else are you lying about? So when I see stuff like that, I always get kind of skeptical. Like, I would listen to him with a neutral mindset, just kind of hearing what he was saying, but not really coming to an agreement on it. But that's when I kind of was just stopped listening to him. When people start kind of exposing that, it wasn't really getting a lot of attention. I'm like, so if he's lying about his college degree, dude probably is just a fraud talking on the internet. He caught a lane, and he ran with it.
Because if you watch his older videos, he was talking about fucking cologne.
Yeah,
suits and shit.
Cologne and suits and, like just going, making. He always used to walk around, and that's nothing wrong with that. Like, I could see myself dressing like that as an older man. Like he's always wearing suits and dress shoes, and I already love nice cologne, but suits and wearing suits and dress shoes. Maybe that's I could see myself doing that as an older man. So I thought that was cool. But then he used to talk about men too. He used to focus more on the men. And what she should be doing was more like a men's advice thing. But then as soon as he started switching to just kind of talking to women and stuff like that, that's when he took off.
And then other people started doing the same shit. That's literally what Fresh and Fit does.
Yeah.
They say they do other shit. I don't watch their shit, but they say they do other stuff. They say that they have like a whole men's corner where it's like Men Mondays and we talk about escalating men. They probably do. But maybe it's like they don't stand on any type of principle. Where if this is what you guys want, if this is where I'm going to get all the views and analytics from, then I'm going to go in that direction because that's what the people want. And then you just have to play up to that role. You have to play up to that part. I just think I think it's dangerous and it's detrimental. A lot of the people that they're talking to, I wonder what the age group is. Because there's gentlemen like ourselves of our age that are still, we're young, but we're of an age where it's like our decisions have repercussions on actual people. If you're like talking to a 15-year-old and a 15-year-old sees her shit, who cares really at the end of the day? Like some high school dude is like talking to women. He shouldn't be disrespecting anybody, but who really cares if they're like not talking to girls because they're watching Fresh and Fit at the age of 15? That doesn't really have anything. But if you're like a man who is in a relationship with a woman and you have a child with the woman, and it's like, well, I don't date, I don't do anything with, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I can't even really think of any example of things that they talk about, really. But we actually, at our age, can have actual repercussions that are dangerous on society. And then you think about things like, in terms of just like dating culture when it leads to marriage and when it leads to childbirth and things like that. Like we seem to be in a weird part of society right now, in a weird day and age where people just aren't really focused on relationships. And at the end of the day, like that's what we're here for, in a way. That's one of the reasons why we're here. That's not the reason, but it's important.
It's important, but yeah, people are just not. Pandemic affected a lot of things because I kind of feels like, we're still dealing with the pandemic, and now we got monkeypox running around, and it seems like we're not making a lot of noise about that as much as we should be. I just kind of feel like in my situation, it's just like, it doesn't feel like everything 100% went back to normal. Like, I see people come over, but there's still a distance. There's still a distance there in public. That's enough that I feel like it can lead to that. Plus, you got people getting radicalized on the internet, especially about all this like weirdo manosphere stuff. I can see why there's such a distance in general in relationships.
When did it escalate to this? When did we start getting this misogynist wave of men? When did we start getting, even on the women's side, like we're not gonna just talk about the men and not mention the women. The women are also doing
we gotta. Yeah, and then misandrous nonsense, like that therapist lady. We weren't even really. There was like this therapist lady who was just like talking crazy to black men on the internet. Talking about, you guys need help, you guys need to go to therapists, like speaking for everybody, and they chased her off the internet and she lost her job. And it was mostly black women checking her ass, talking crazy about black men.
I haven't heard, the thing about that is I don't hear the misandrous stuff. I don't hear it coming from them. What I hear from their side is
no, it's mostly the men, don't get me wrong, But I definitely have to be honest, there is maybe in the black community, I mean in general, yes, but I feel like black male hate is very real too. And we're not going to get out of here without talking about that in particular.
I don't really see that side of it. Maybe I'm not in step with it. Maybe my ears aren't to that street. But I don't really hear that side of it. Mostly what I hear from that side, coming from the women, the thought leaders, right? Quote unquote, I'm putting air quotes around that, is this whole like, oh, we're not going to settle for men type of deal. I don't know if that's misogynist. I don't know what your thoughts on that is, but it kind of makes sense.
No, I mean, nobody.
You're putting people at such a high level. Like you're trying to choose literally like the most fresh. You want the apple that just dropped fresh. It was like at the peak of ripeness. That's not possible for every single human being. For every woman to get the peak, same with the men. That's not possible for you to get this peak make-believe image of what you perceive or what you think a woman should be or a man should be or a spouse should be. Oh, and then you have this whole move about like, and I'm not stepping on anybody's whichever way they want to go when it comes to relationships and romance. But we have this whole like polygamy thing going on and polyamory and things like that, and it's kind of just like where are we gonna, and I hate saying down the middle, but like when are we gonna get some type of like balance, some type of neutrality where people have an understanding? You know, it seems like it's too much idealism. We live in times of so much chaos on all fronts. I don't think balance is coming in any imagination for a long time. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, I think, on all fronts. And this is not even just talking about relationships, but I don't know, man. I just think the internet is just creating a lot of chaos and division on that front. It's just, especially with the misogyny nonsense. But it's on both sides, but it's mostly the men talking crazy. It is mostly.
It's mostly the men talking really crazy, out of pocket. But there is also on the other side, like you said, like don't settle. Like not everybody, you're not gonna get everything on your bullet list. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna get everything on your checklist. But I guess that goes for everybody. So there's a little bit of unrealistic expectations there. But I don't think it's
I call it entitlement.
I mean, it's entitlement. Yeah, and I saw like this crazy, going back to Andrew Tate. I saw like this crazy post where it was like, I don't even remember if it was like just a random comment or was someone, but some lady said she's like a middle school teacher. And she said that there was like middle school kids quoting Andrew Tate talking about women need to be in the kitchen, and
oh no,
she was saying all kinds of. I don't even know if he said this, but she said that's what they were saying. When she called him on it, she was like, "Oh, we're Andrew Tate fans." Could be cap.
It's probably real. That nigga's all over TikTok. That's why they're banning his ass. What are your thoughts on things like when people are spreading certain types of dangerous information, things that can be perceived as dangerous to a society? And they get taken off private, or no, they're not private. They're not all private. When they get taken off of public forums, I'll say it that way. What do you think about that? The whole free speech thing, because that's a huge narrative that people are trying to pass.
It's a slippery slope, dude. I'm conflicted on it because on one end, I'm like, if it's somebody spouting bullshit, a racist, a misogynist, a crazy person, I don't want to see them on there. But that's a slippery slope where if you have people talking about white supremacy, truth to power stuff, they'll get kicked off. And they can use the same reasoning. They can just say, "Oh, we are allowed to kick off where we want to kick off."
Right. And you're saying essentially, if you're doing it for one, you have to do it for all.
You have to do it. Yeah. It's a slippery slope. So I feel like, I think garbage human being, but he should stay on there because it's a slippery slope.
You think he should stay on? So you think? What about Donald Trump?
I think he should stay on too. This is the only reason I say this is because it's a slippery slope. Because they get rid of them, then they'll get rid of the people speaking truth to power about real issues as well, and use similar reasoning.
So you think it's just going to... You're looking at it from like a snowball effect, is what you mean?
I'm looking at it from like a snowball effect, that it's like if one person can have it, then they're going to start censoring other people, and other people will get censored, and then it's just only people who get to speak or a certain voice. But I also think it's like a necessary evil. But I also think that, of course, these people are spreading dangerous ideas and dangerous rhetoric. But the people who need to speak actual truth to power are going to get censored as well. It's almost like a certain kind of, and I can't even really explain it.
I know what you mean
too
though.
Well, yeah.
And I think other people know what you mean too. For me, it's like I want to remove them. I think if you're inflammatory, you need to be removed. But I see exactly what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. I think maybe it can't be something where it's a gray area, and then everybody wants to. But it's so weird though. It's like, it's very, very complex. It's extremely complex. I think that what you need to do is you need to follow. But see, I was gonna say I think what you need to do is you need to follow whatever people are saying in public conversation, whatever the discourse is, where you can kind of pick. When you're talking about someone like Donald Trump, he has a lot of fans. But then on the same time, I feel like there's more haters, and for merit, for good reason. So you probably should side on that side and say, well, he's escalating things a little bit too much. Public discourse also says the same. Remove the man. But if it's someone like Joe Rogan, who's also extremely controversial and says a lot of different types of things that people find, like when he was going through the whole COVID thing, he literally made an entire platform say, okay, now we have to put COVID. If we talk about COVID, and I wonder if they're going to start doing it for this particular episode, because now we're talking about it. He literally made Spotify say, if you speak about COVID in the episode, we're going to have to say in the beginning of the episode that there's COVID, there possibly could be COVID misinformation about this episode. So when you start having these types of conversations, you start seeing these types of situations happen, it's kind of like, do you have to pick a side? Because these are public platforms. They're publicly owned and they're public. Who makes the decision at the end of the day? Who does the decision belong to?
See, that's the slippery slope. And that also kind of goes back into, these are privately owned. Well, these are not privately owned. These are public companies, of course. But, these companies, they can pick and choose who they want on their platform or not. So then on that token, they really have the final say on who gets to stay and who doesn't get to stay.
Who do you think idealistically should have the decision?
That's one of those things that I guess you could leave it up to public opinion, where it's just like Twitter is like, we're considering banning this popular figure. And it would have to be special cases. It would only have to be like people who have reached a certain level of fame and influence, and they're on some kind of metric, and they're just talking crazy to the point where it's like people at Twitter are like, we got to get rid of this guy. They can leave it up to vote, but I think that could cause problems. You have a bunch of dudes making fake accounts, and it's just a lot of unnecessary bullshit.
If you had your
vote, at the end of the day, I guess
it's choose.
I would choose to get rid of him, and that kind of goes against what I just said, because I don't want it to be up to me. If it was up to me, I said it before, it was up to me, I'd get all the racists and all the dudes out of there. But just thinking, outside of my personal biases, he should stay. For the simple, he probably get shadow banned, but he should stay because it's a slippery slope. They're going to start banning him, and then they're going to use similar reasoning to start banning other people on the other side of the spectrum, or on a neutral side, or who are not even in playing this political game. I don't know. My personal biases, I'll get rid of him, but I think in general, he should stay, if that makes sense.
I agree. I guess I agree, because I'm not a free speech loyalist, but I see exactly I understand that other sentiment. I completely understand that other sentiment, and it's important. These discussions are important. We're speaking about misogyny. I just wanted to mention a little bit of a report came out earlier in the week. We mentioned that we covered the Deshaun Watson topic on a couple of pods ago, and there was an uproar of people that, including ourselves, who were saying that his punishment was a bit lenient. He was originally suspended, I believe, for 6 games. I don't think there was any monetary punishment. The NFL disagreed with whatever came out in terms of the punishment, and they appealed it. And so now it stands as he has an updated suspension of 11 games. He's due to pay a $5 million fine. And then he has to go through certain types of treatment programs in order to, and he can't he has to have masseuses only the ones that the Browns provide and things like that.
So this is the thing, and that's and you understand that's like trolling. I just feels like trolling to me. I'm gonna let you finish before I get into.
That's all. Go ahead.
So they're gonna pick masseuses that only they pick. Dude shouldn't even be in the league for one. And if he's in the league, I guess we can't stop him from having his own masseuses, but they shouldn't even providing shit for this guy.
So you think he should be out of the league?
I think he should be out of the league. So dude's a pervert and a weirdo. Like,
and that brings in another discourse.
You're a public figure. But see, but that's not. This is not free speech. This is a literal like pervert, molester, like abuser. Like,
in the last conversation we literally just had, we were talking about how there's a gray area between free speech and inflammatory rhetoric. This is another one of those conversations where it's like accusation versus charge, and I guess there's a third, conviction. But if they're convicted for something, obviously you're gonna be jailed. So let's put that to the side. Accusation versus charge. The man wasn't charged. He had a plethora of accusations, though. At what point?
And wasn't he known as? Didn't you say he was known as Tiny Towel?
I don't know. Is that what they called him? No, they called like the move.
I thought that's what you said.
They labeled the move.
Tiny.
He had like a
he was known.
move.
He was known for the like. So if you got people on the team cracking jokes about this guy, let's just say he had a move or they called him Tiny Towel. They're complicit in it for one. But we all know, this is a known thing. Like, I don't care if he didn't get convicted. That's enough for me to be like, get the fuck out.
So when we start talking about things like accusation versus charges, where do you stand on that front? Or does it matter the number of accusations? Because Deshaun Watson he had an accusation of over 20. I think it was like 26 people or 25, 24.
How many games did they suspend him for?
Originally it was 6, I believe, and now it is 11.
See, this is my thing, though. Why would they even... See, my thing is, what's the point of even suspending him? He didn't get... Because you can make the same argument, right? It's like, oh, he wasn't convicted. Oh, these are just accusations. Why even suspend him at all then?
Wasn't even charged.
Wasn't even charged. What's the point of suspending him? Suspending them is almost like they're admitting that he did some of this shit. Like, they know, but he didn't get convicted. We still got to punish him, though.
Right.
Well, if you're admitting he did it, get him the fuck out.
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly.
You are literally just giving him a slap on the wrist because you're admitting he didn't get convicted, but we know he did it. So we have to punish him some kind of way.
Look at Elliot speaking that truth, baby.
But that's just logical to me.
It is logical.
If he really didn't do it, then he shouldn't even have a suspension. If you really believe that he didn't do it, he shouldn't even have a suspension.
The weirdest part I think about it is that 11 games, though it may be a lot, isn't a full season. It may be one of the highest suspensions that the NFL has delivered upon a player. But guess what? It's still not the most that the NFL has suspended someone. They've suspended somebody more for weed.
Yeah.
That's for having weed in the system.
See, that really makes you think. And that's weird. Because weed thing, that's like a whole racial, politically charged kind of thing. That he gets suspended a whole season. But this guy, he's a black man, right? If I remember correctly.
Most of all these cases.
Yeah, so that's a little weird that, all right, I don't even know. I was trying to tie it together, and it does not even make sense, because black men have also been historically, depicted as sexual predators. So now I'm like, well, so you would think, if that was the case, they would have got him the fuck out of there. If a guy got suspended a season for weed, they should have already got him the fuck out of there. So I don't even know what it is. I don't know why he's getting the good old boy treatment right now. He's a black man for this whole thing.
I think the weirdest part about it is the number of accusations. If you have a certain number of accusations, and let's bring it away from the NFL. If you're anybody in society, and you're supposed to be a good Samaritan, a good citizen, right? Stand-up citizen. If you have a certain level of accusations, to me, and I wonder what that number is. I want to ask you that at the end of the sentence, what you think that number is. That says once you pass that threshold, you probably are guilty.
Right.
What do you think that number is?
See, then this is a difficult one, because I'm also kind of like at one, I'm like, could be a lie. It probably isn't a lie, but there's a chance it is. But once you start getting to 5 to 10, and even and 1 to 4, I'm still kind of like 4 accusations. I'm kind of believing you did it, but you never know. It could be a group of people who are like, let's get this dude for his pockets.
But then
it's possible. But I don't think it's likely.
When you get
but
to the
when
number
you get to
24,
5 to 10, when you get to 5 to 10, I'm like, all right, you probably, unless it's 10, the super far off chance it's 5 to 10 people who are like, we're gonna run this guy's pockets. But 5 to 10 is when I'm like, all right, this dude did it.
And then when you get up to 24,
24, you're dead to rights, I think.
you should be jailed. You should be
24,
jailed.
you're dead to rights. There's nothing that's going to make me think you didn't do it unless it's like something like miraculous comes out that completely disproves it.
It's really upsetting. Is it sexist?
I don't think it's sexist. I think like 24 people, my guy. And they're all saying, "Oh, he did the little trick with the towel." But
let me put it this way.
And at least, and this is the thing, at least one of those times is true. Because even if it's just like one person, he did it to one or two, and then the rest are like, we're gonna run this dude's pockets. You still did it once or twice.
Exactly. You have to play the odds of probability. I mean, what are the odds out of 24 times you've been accused for something that you didn't do it once, at least once, out of 24 accusations? If 24 families come up and say, I think that this person murdered my daughter, wouldn't you think, oh yeah, he probably murdered one of those people?
Yeah.
If let me ask you this hypothetical. If 24 men had come out, let's say 24 men on the team, or maybe that's a little too close. You can pick holes in this hypothetical if you want, but let's just say this is the one I can come up with at the time. If 24 men come out of the team and say Deshaun Watson sexually harassed me and sexually assaulted me during when we were in the showers. If 24 teammates come out and say that, what do you think they do in that scenario?
I think this is the sad part. I think he'd probably get kicked off the team quicker if the men came out and said it than the women.
Do you think it's because they're teammates, so it's like the proximity is a bit different? They're more likely to believe the employees over.
Yeah, I think they're more likely to believe the players on the team versus the masseuses or masseurs or whatever the plural is for that. Just off the privilege and money and the notoriety that they have, I think they would believe them much sooner that he was sexually assaulting players in the shower than doing the tiny towel thing when he was getting massages. I really believe he would be in more trouble if the players came out against him.
I think it's sexist. I think it literally
is it's completely sexist. Yeah.
I think it literally is just sexism. I don't think that they care that it's women talking. I really don't think so.
And it's probably team owners probably do the same shit. Like I always think when this is like a little weird. I'm thinking like, because a lot of times I feel like you would think they would jump at like a black man being a sexual predator. You would think they would jump. This would be like, oh shit, we got a whole new thing to demonize black men with, right? But the fact that it's not being done makes you think there's some sympathy somewhere. He's getting somebody somewhere and up the chain. It's like, yeah, I do it too, so we're not gonna go hard on him. This is me reaching, but it just makes you wonder. Like I like to it's just a random theory, but like it makes you wonder. I'm like, they're not jumping at the chance. Like whenever it's weed, they jump at the chance.
It's probably it's probably just the NFL. It probably is because it's probably political. At the end of the day, it's most likely political because you have a situation like Kevin Spacey from years back, where he's accused of I don't know what the specific number is, but it was probably in that threshold that you mentioned, the 5 to 10. Maybe it was around there, maybe 3 to 10 people, and they got him the fuck out of there. Fired him from his job. Hasn't had a box office movie role in a long time since that incident has happened. I mean, he was charged. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. These are really heavy topics, but I just think it's super interesting. Where do we go from here? Can we tie this into anything?
I don't think we got anything talking about Tiny Towel. That's gonna be his nickname from now on. I don't think we have anything that really ties into Tiny Towel.
We're on a political direction right now. We could talk about CNN.
We could talk about CNN, or we could talk about Dennis Rodman.
Ooh, let's talk about Dennis Rodman. Let's talk about Dennis Rodman. You want to go with that one?
Yeah. So information came out. Dennis Rodman is in talks, and he's going to Russia to see if he can see about Brittany Griner, see if he can get her out of prison. He has a whole history of talking to Russia and going to North Korea. Like And you probably know more about his escapades in basketball. I just know him as just like he has a lot of connections overseas, countries that America typically has terrible relationships in.
Yep.
And I just think, my question to you is, do you think he can do it? Or do you think it's just some political nonsense? There's some celebrity nonsense?
I do think it's a celebrity thing. I do think it's slightly a stunt. I've never known, maybe I don't know enough about his track record, but I don't know anything about Dennis Rodman to be some political advocate. Never known him to be that. I haven't even known him to be that outspoken about politics. The only thing that I can associate him with politics is obviously his connection with Kim Jong-un. And he talks about, oh yeah, Kim Jong-un, he's a friend of mine. And he'll be up there in North Korea. I don't even know how you develop those relationships. That's the first thing. I didn't even know he had a relationship with Putin. He claims he does.
Yeah.
I guess if you could get in the room, it's a lot. You should get in the room. If you can get in the room, you should go and get in the room. So I guess kudos to Dennis Rodman at the end of the day. Do you think anything comes from it?
I couldn't tell you. See, this is one of those wait and see ones. This is one of those, because it's one of those ones that it's just like, if it happened, it wouldn't surprise me, but it also seems completely absurd at the same time.
It's kind of behind the scenes backdoory.
Caught in the middle. Yeah, it's like behind the scenes backdoory. Like, he's the kind of dude, like, you count him out and he would pull it off for real. Like, he would pull it off and everybody would just be shocked. But it also seems super goofballish as well.
It does sound like some Simpsons episode type shit. Some sitcom shit. Oh yeah, cameo Dennis Rodman goes and speaks to the president of Russia.
Seems like some sitcom nonsense. Like some goofy nonsense, and he actually pulls it off. Something happens. Like he does something, or he gets real cool. Like he does something for Putin, and Putin's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the best friend I've ever had. You will release her right away."
That's
like,
the best dick sucking.
You know how they are.
That's the best dick sucking I've ever had.
Some crazy, yeah, some sitcom nonsense, some crazy nonsense, and she gets out. I don't know if it's gonna happen because they're using her as a bargaining chip right now to get out some real savages. But I don't know if they're gonna change their stance on it. But 9 years, I mean, we talked about this already. Like 9 years in a Russian prison, like a Russian labor camp. Like fuck that. Oh my, I probably would die in there, bro. They would try to kill me.
I feel bad for saying it, but I was like, she did commit the crime.
She did commit the crime, but that's just like, the sentence is evil. Like, yeah, she committed the crime. Cool. Give her like a year, or not even.
Is it the problem with? So it's a problem with the sentence. It's not a problem with the conviction.
Because there are people who I'm pretty sure it was just like this. I'm pretty sure it was like a white woman who brought in like a whole bunch of weed. She didn't just bring in just a little micro residual at the bottom of an almost empty weed pen. She was bringing in a lot of flour. She was bringing in a lot of grams, like double-digit grams of weed in. And she got like, what, months? And then her parents got her out somehow? That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's complete bullshit. It's just they're trying to use her as a political bargaining tool. The 9 years is basically just like, we're going to keep her here until you get some act right, and we send you, we do a prisoner swap. That's literally what it is, because it doesn't even make any sense.
Do we not, how many people do you know are in overseas prisons? Do we not allow that? Is that the reason why we try to bring them back? Or is it that we're saying that's because she did the crime. So
we're not saying she didn't do it.
No, but listen.
That's very cruel.
When they bring her back, when they bring her back, are they?
It's like giving me 5 years for jaywalking. It's like, what?
But when they bring her back, are they not going to put her in prison here?
I do not believe so. I don't think they're going to put her in prison. I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense because she didn't break a crime in America.
So they're trying to free her.
They're trying to free her, yeah, in exchange for freeing, I guess, other criminals in the U.S. prison system.
Don't call me a coon. But if you're the president of the United States, are you going and trying to free Brittany Griner?
Yeah.
Why? Because she.
If I just possessed Joe Biden right now, and I forgot, if I possessed Joe Biden right now, I would try to do it, because then you can be like, because it makes sense to me, because they're gonna be like, if they free her, it's like, see, when the election times come on, they're like, see, blacks, we did something for you. You know what I mean? Like, That'd be the greatest little bargaining tool. That'd be the greatest little. Now you have something to say during midterms after that the next election. You have something to say. You can't that you just absolutely did nothing for the black community. You can at least say, well, we jumped through hoops to get her out. That counts for something, right? You would think.
I think I don't know. I'm just confused.
It makes sense to me.
Maybe I'm just not knowledgeable enough to understand it. Maybe
I'm not knowledgeable enough either.
I just don't get it. I don't know why
it's
everybody's in an uproar.
But she did the crime. But like, that'd be like if I jaywalked, and they was like, "Oh, you're gonna go do a year because you jaywalked." I think that's equivalent.
No, it's
giving someone a year in prison.
So it's the number of
It's not like she's smuggling. It's the number of years. It's not like she's smuggling drugs. It's not like she came in with pounds on pounds on pounds to start like a little drug operation. She literally brought in a pen that had residuals of weed.
So if
it's they showed a picture of like what it looked like. It was just like
it was a little canister, yeah.
It was just like, but it was like
it was a smoke pen.
Barely anything. It was a smoke pen with barely anything in it.
So if it was a year, do you think everybody makes such a big deal out of it?
I think if it was a year, people would still be kind of like let that girl go home, but it wouldn't be as much uproar. But 9 years.
If she's in a French prison, do they still try to go bring her back?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it's the fact that if it was like Russia or China, then they would probably be like, because we have terrible relationships with Russia and China. Then now it's a bigger deal. But if it was like any other prison, I don't think they would care that much.
It's really weird to me. Let's transition into the CNN thing since we're on this political tip. So there was reports from CNN, not from CNN. There was reports of CNN that was saying that one of the, I don't know his name, I'm not even sure if I want to say his name, but there was reports that one of the biggest shareholders in the CNN company was meeting with senators of a certain side on the Republican side and having conversations about how they can bridge the gap of trust between what's coming from CNN and what the people on the Republican side are hearing, people of the right. There was also reports, obviously, because the man had interviews about it too, so this is proven, not just reporting. This is proven that the new chairman of the board and the new CEO of CNN wants to move CNN into more of a direction of being moderate, being centrist, nonpartisan is the buzzwords that he was using. And in America, that means right wing, in my opinion. You say you're not a big CNN fan, but
I'm not a fan of mainstream media in general because it doesn't serve me, so I don't even follow it.
But at the same time, a large portion of the society of America watches CNN. Most people are left leaning here. Most people watch CNN or MSNBC. And if you have a CNN that's going more towards Fox Light, they're the new Fox Light.
Which is ridiculous to me that you said they're hiring former Fox News guys to come over. It just kind of seems like
they're trying to recruit. They already got one of them. They already got Chris Wallace, who is known as like more of a moderate.
They're trying to capture that audience. Like you said, it's Fox Light. They're just trying to give you Fox with a chaser or a mixed Fox. A Fox is Everclear. They're trying to mix it with water it down, put some ice in it, mix it with some soda. You know, but you're still getting that Everclear. You're still getting the bullshit. They're gonna gloss over it a little bit. They're gonna soften it.
You don't really watch CNN, but you've watched CNN though?
As a kid, yeah. When I wasn't ignorant, you know, my parents would be watching. We used to have the news on all the time, CNN and NBC, all kinds of stuff.
What do you see from this coming? What do you see coming from this?
They're just trying. I feel like they're just trying to get white moderates on board with more of the Fox News stuff, but with a little bit of a chaser.
What do you think the nonpartisan coverage is going to look like?
They're gonna say it's non-biased and it's more neutral, but you're hiring former Fox News guys. That doesn't seem like a good sign. I don't expect former Fox News guy to give me anything that's centrist or nonpartisan. I just don't. even see how that even makes any sense.
Why are we so obsessed in America with centrism?
Who do you know who's a centrist? I don't know anybody
Older
who's
people.
obsessed. I don't know anybody who's a centrist. I mean, anybody who's not black. Well, these days, most black people I know who are probably, you can describe them as centrists. I think that's fair. But they don't subscribe, when you look at left, right, liberal, conservative, that's, to me, is kind of viewed as just like white infighting. But if you put yourself in there, I guess you could say most people are centrist. Not most, but a lot of people are centrist. But I don't really think there's an obsession with centrism. I don't.
You don't think
white
so?
White moderates, but white moderates to me just seem like they're just conservative light.
We literally just had. I'm not just talking about white people. I'm just talking about America in general. The narrative, the political narrative in this country is it's easier. Maybe it's a political thing, but everybody always talk. We literally just had an election where they were like, "Oh no, we can't use Bernie Sanders. He's too on one side. We need to look for a centrist, a moderate."
Oh, I get what you're saying. Well, I mean, this is the thing, and you might think this is cap, but I think right-wing talking points and right-wing ideas are allowed to fester a lot more than actual progressive left-wing ideologies. The right wing is allowed a lot more freedom than the actual left wing in this country.
Explain it more. Because I don't see it.
When most people talk about anything progressive, universal health care, universal public university, or it being heavily subsidized, that stuff just gets shut down as just being commie and being leftist and being woke.
Right.
All these guys they have Fox News, all these guys get to run around and they get all this media attention. All these big names and big voices are right wingers. There's all these Trump supporters. I don't think they really get shut. Like, can you provide an argument where you see left wing people having as much of a voice as right wingers do? And a lot of right wingers would tell you that's cap. When it's really the moderates and the neoliberals who are kind of telling them to shut up and calm down. But they call them leftists. They say that's a leftist.
I definitely agree the fact that it's easier for them to speak their nonsense and not have it get shut down unless it's overtly just...
Yeah, it doesn't get shut down unless
shit.
it's overtly Ku Klux Klan. You so much as even whisper anything that's progressive and they're up your ass. And they keep talking. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, then I agree with that, yeah. Because it's easier for you to step with traditionalism rather than get off that train and move towards something of progress. Because then you actually have to do the work.
I don't even think it's about doing the work. It's just if white conservatives tomorrow were just like, hey, universal health care, universal public education for white conservatives, they would be the first people praising it through the heavens. Am I wrong about that? Because I really believe if it was exclusively for them, they would not say no to it and say, we're not going to take a handout. I refuse to believe that.
Could be right. Could be right.
So, following up and finishing the topic, I don't see anything centrist or nonpartisan about former Fox News people being on something that's supposed to be a centrist network. I just don't see how that works.
I'm just worried. I don't like the fact that they demonize progressive agenda. That worries me. We're moving backwards right now. Sorry to keep talking right over you, but...
To me, it just kind of feels like a certain group of people who have power don't want anyone else to share in those benefits. They'd rather not have it than you get it too.
Who are those people?
White conservatives.
They're not making the laws.
I mean, but they're putting people in power who make the laws.
We show out too.
I mean, yeah, we show out too, but there's a lot of them as well.
Apparently they don't make up most of the country.
Really? How much do you think they make of the country? I'm talking people who specifically vote for those lawmakers who are against these kind of things, against anything progressive. Plus, we have to also talk about it's not just them. But I think that's their biggest reason for not supporting it. But a lot of people put in like neoliberal, centrist moderates like Joe Biden and those guys. They don't support it either. They don't care about that.
But they run on quote unquote progressive agenda. So at the end of the day, I believe it's the lawmakers. I don't think it's just white conservatives.
I mean, the lawmakers have the final say. It's not just the white conservatives, but the people who represent what they believe are in there as well, and they have the final say.
So you actually think our voting matters?
See, I think our voting matters, but see, I don't really want to get into my mentality on voting, because when I'm thinking about voting, I'm thinking about it from a black perspective and what we need to do in terms of voting.
Well, just generalize it.
I mean, I think our voting does matter. I definitely do think our voting matters. I mean, why do you think why wouldn't it matter? What are your thoughts on it not mattering?
I think that they lie. Look at someone like Joe Biden, and we can transition this into our next topic. Look at someone like Joe Biden, who runs off of student loan forgiveness. Gets elected because that is one thing that he runs off of, and saying that's going to be a part of the agenda that I'm going to put in place. That is a law that I'm going to put into place when I am president, if I become president, when you vote for me. And so what do? We show out, we vote for you. And what do you do as Joe Biden? I'm going to delay it. Let's put a moratorium on it. Okay, a few months later, I'm going to delay it. Let's put a moratorium on it. 2 years later, now we're finally like, okay, tomorrow, Joe Biden's going to make his final decision. People actually think that Joe Biden's going to make a final decision, and I could be proven wrong.
No, it's going to be some bullshit that doesn't matter. It's going to be 10K, which, you know, I was talking to people about it today. My mom is like, you better be grateful. You need to be grateful. When I talked to her earlier, I was just like, it was like going on a whole tangent about it. And I'm like, what is 10K going to do for people who have $150,000 in loans? So I hear what you're saying. You know, I'm going back to what you were saying. I hear what you're saying, that they lie. But that's why you have to vet your candidates better. We already know Joe Biden wasn't shit.
Wasn't our decision.
Mentality was just get Trump out of office.
Yeah, wasn't our decision. They make it for
it. If earlier in the process people actually vetted a better candidate and actually unified and voted for that candidate, we could get them in. But a lot of it just seems like people are stupid, plus things are rigged, plus politicians lie, plus we have a two-party system that's falling apart, kind of leads to the situation.
Tomorrow we need to you want to put a wager on it?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll pay $5.
What do you think is going to happen?
$5.
You want to make should we make a line or should we make a spread? Or should we do both?
What does that mean?
Money line is it's a yes or a no, basically. It's two sides you can pick. It's either Joe Biden is going to pass some sort of student loan forgiveness law, or he's not going to pass some type of student loan.
I'm gonna put yes, but it's gonna be, and I guess it doesn't matter because I'm just saying yes. But
I would say no.
Like it's gonna be some bullshit. It's gonna be 10K, some like something that you can't say he didn't, you know, write off some money, but it's gonna be a cop out for the most part.
All right, I'll raise your $5 that he says no. Deal?
Deal. Let's do it. I'll send you 5.
And then if we make a spread, that's when the numbers come into play. So you're saying 10K. So it's either you pick an over 10K or you pick an under 10K.
I'm picking under 10K.
But we can't have it be at the exact number that we believe is going to hit. It can't be, because that's when you get the odds are off. So the odds have to be a little bit in the favor of you choosing a certain side. So I think we should put the odds at something like 15K. So it's either going to be over 15K or under 15K. Because what were they speaking? What was the original numbers that they were speaking? They were speaking a total white,
They said
right?
progressives were calling for 50K, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And Bernie was the only one that was like a complete white.
And he was talking about 10K. Listen, I'd be so happy if he did like 25 or 30, because I'd be wiped out.
Most people have more than that, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, see, that's the selfishness that comes in, because then someone who has 150 is like, well, fuck, it's 30. 30 is helpful. But
well, what the rumors is that I've been seeing is that it's going to be a 10K for people that are under 125,000 yearly income.
Okay.
For a person that's under $125,000, but over no. For a person that is over, let's just say over 80K, but under 125K. Does 10,000 really mean anything to you? How quick can you pay off 10,000? You could pay 10,000 off within the year, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
So is is that an arbitrary number? Where does 10K? Like, I'd love to hear his explanation for that.
I think it's a small enough amount they feel comfortable with, but they also can kind of get away without really doing too much for the people.
Because you're still going to have the problem. What is the
You're
number?
still gonna have the problem.
It's like over $1 trillion of debt.
Yeah.
When it's all aggregated, it's over $1 trillion. I think it's like 1.2, 1.3, around there. It's a lot of fucking money, yo. That's a lot of fucking money. I wish I had the statistic. I wish I had a chart here. If we were like some investment podcast, I'd be like, look, if you look at the chart, I want to see what the allocation of debt in consumer debt. I think that's under consumer debt, right? That would be under that category, correct?
Is it consumer debt? See, I don't know. We can look this up, but I'm not sure. Are debt loans consumer debt? Student loans, yeah.
Okay, I'd love to see an allocation. If you can look this up real quick, if you could find it real quick, while we're still on this topic, I'd like to see an allocation of the percentage of consumer debt in the States. Because I'm pretty sure it would probably, maybe it might be behind real estate. It might be behind home debt. But I'm pretty sure it's definitely top 3. I can almost guarantee it.
Household debt in America. So mortgages is the biggest chunk.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
I'm trying to zoom in because it's like getting covered. Then the next biggest, so it's 10 trillion mortgages. The next biggest is student loans.
Yup.
Then auto loans. Then credit card.
I would have thought those were too sweet.
Other, and then HE revolving, which I don't know what that is. That's the smallest one.
I don't know either. But when you look about it, you know, me and you, we're not like savvy when it comes to investments, and not when it comes to that side of economics and things like that. Not necessarily investments.
I consider myself like an intermediate beginner.
However,
retail investor.
That's a good term, an intermediate beginner. However, we can have the conversation about economy from a more macro perspective, very macro perspective. We just saw that student loan debt is the second biggest consumer debt that Americans hold. We've already seen a couple of recessions. Most recessions are most likely due to that. We've seen a Great Recession that happened. What's that now? 13? How many years ago is that? 2007. 15 years ago. That was all due to the biggest consumer debt that Americans have, which is housing. How long does it take before the bubble pops and there's an entire recession or maybe even a depression due to student loan debt? What are they thinking? Like, what do you think is the process of that? Number one, I'm gonna answer the first question first. How long do you think it takes before that student loan debt bubble pops, and it takes us into the recession? And how big do you think that recession would be? And then number two, why do you think that they see that? Because I know that they see it. I know they see it. Why don't they do anything about it? Because they'll spend on everything else.
I don't think I'm educated enough to speak on it. I just feel like post-COVID, you're seeing less and less people going to college because it's just getting too expensive. Who has the money to, especially go to a private school? Like my school was like, it was like $70,000 a year. Like I promise you, it was like $80-some thousand a year now. All housing, everything included, it's like $80,000 a year. You know, I don't really know what would cause a pop. Like what do you think would cause a pop? It's just so expensive. Like the enrollments just drop to like astronomically low numbers. Is that what would happen? Like what would?
Well, one of the most obvious answers for that is
people just not paying. I guess that's one of them.
Yeah, people can't afford to pay. So that's the number one answer, is that people can't afford to pay. The people that are loaning it out, when it's federal loans, federal grants, federal loans, or even if it's privatized loans, then they're defaulting. They end up defaulting. Same thing that happened with that's the same thing that happened with the Great Recession, is that there was way too many people that were over leveraged in housing. They can't afford to pay the fucking mortgages. They can't pay the debt. They can't pay it. So what happens? No one's making money now. Everything becomes stagnant, thus recession. The same thing is going to happen. So to answer that question, what I think the easiest thing, and maybe this is 20 years down the line, however, it will end up happening unless something is done about the debt. The easiest answer is when AI takes over most jobs and everyone's getting laid off. If there's a mass layoff, because all the jobs, where are people getting their income from? How am I going to pay my loans? Now, you did just mention that less people are going to college because less people can afford it. So maybe the numbers won't be as high, but it takes an entire, like, who do we hear are the most vocal about not wanting student loan debt to be passed, or student loan forgiveness to be passed? Boomers.
Dude, you don't even want me to get started.
And how long did it take them to completely pay off their debt? About 30 to 40 years. And within that time period, that fits my thesis.
But 30 to 40 years, and they went to school for a couple thousand a semester. There's no comparison.
Well, I'm just saying, it takes...
From that logic, no one will pay it off then.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's exactly...
Yeah.
We're still... Our generation would still... Because there's interest on it. It's not just you're paying a flat fee. It's not that you're just paying down the principal. There's interest on it. And if you can't pay it, and you have to continue to refinance, the interest it all accumulates. I don't know if you can refinance. You probably can work a little bit with the interest on student loan debt, but I'm pretty sure it's already set. However, what I'm saying is that decades into the future, people from our generation and Gen Z, which this generation isn't even over yet, we will have student loan debts.
Isn't it over? Because Gen Alpha is a thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. We still will have student loan debt. Really? I guess because it's 2020s now. Yeah.
Gen Alpha is like, they're born in like 2010 or 2011.
No, that's not a generation. If we're Gen Z...
Bro, I can look it up right now.
If we're Gen Z, that's not... Because a generation is when people become old enough to have children. We're not... Oh, I guess we are. But we just reached this age in the 2020s.
Well, remember, my parents are... But they're older. But my parents are boomers. My parents are like late boomers.
Yeah, those are people that are born in the 50s and 60s. Z.
Yeah, my parents were born in the 50s. But Gen Alpha is... They're saying Gen Alpha are people born between 2010 and 2024.
Oh, I would have put it more on that late side where it's like 2015.
Gen Z is 95 to 2009.
95?
Yeah.
All right, whatever. But what I'm saying is, when we get to the point...
It's like every other gen is probably your children's gen, typically, what I think it is. Every other gen is probably what your children's gen is.
Okay. But
not necessarily. There are Gen Zs who are having Gen Alpha kids, you know. But if you 2 or 3 years from now, there will be the start of the next gen. So it's usually late next gen. Like if I'm a Gen Z, my children are probably going to be late the gen after me, or really early the gen after that.
Oh, really? But what we're saying was like, our generation still, however, is going to still have the debt to pay off.
Oh yeah, dude, I would go get my master's right now, you know. But like, I'm not, fuck the debt. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? If it was subsidized, or if I could go to Europe and do it, yeah.
So if they don't pay, if we don't have some type of student loan forgiveness, the bubble will pop. Even, I mean, it's going to happen. That's
when AI is getting scary right now. People are not even talking about this.
Yeah, it's all
not
closeted.
Even talking about like the DALL-E 2s. I told you about DALL-E 2s, and it's just people are now getting their hands on it, and it's getting more advanced. So when we get replaced, like in the 2040s, you know, we're middle-aged people. That's when the pop's gonna happen. But it's gonna happen all not just on student loan debt. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be so disruptive. People are just gonna be out, just basically out on the street.
Yeah. Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
It's not even just the student loan debt. That's gonna be like probably like, you know, they talk about this crash that people are gonna be out in the streets, and it's gonna be like almost like the apocalypse. It's gonna be like Dust Bowl, Great Depression. That's what's gonna be is AI in the 2040s, maybe even 2030s.
And then, I mean, on top of it too, we just saw an entire wave, and maybe not enough people bought homes in order for this bubble to pop either. Maybe, but we did see a housing market bubble. We did see a housing market bubble. We're currently heading towards recession right now. Who's to say that the recession doesn't? Maybe it all compiles. Maybe I can't pay the maybe I can't pay the mortgage off, the mortgage that I have on my home, and the debt that I have, and the debt that I have for credit cards, and the debt for auto loans. Recession 2 years from now. Deep recession. Who knows?
Who knows? Credit cards are scary because you got people who buy credit card debt and they collect on it themselves and make money off of it.
Yeah, people love to lean.
Do you think that's evil? Like if you just
Leaning?
you bought a whole bunch of credit card debt and you start putting liens on people's houses and you're just like, hey, you're 100K in credit card debt. Give me 10K and we're square. I'll forgive it if you give me 10K. But that's how they do it. But remember, they bought the whole stack for 10K. They bought the whole stack of like hundreds of thousands, I don't know, like tens of thousands of people's debt, right? So he got 10K off one case, and imagine he collects on half of them. That's a big profit.
It's unethical.
10K.
I think conceptually it's unethical because you're taking advantage of, you're exploiting, but that's what capitalism is. We've had these conversations before. Capitalism literally is just exploiting other people in order for you to make financial gain. So in that sense, yeah, it's unethical, but it's legal. You know, it makes complete sense. That is an investment. That's no different than someone being like, you know, liquidating their stock position because of whatever reason, and then you going and buying up their shares at a lower cost. It's no different than that, you know. So if you're going to practice capitalism in one sense, you have to practice it in every sense. You don't have to practice it in your own behavior, but you have to be okay with it. I guess I would say there's justification for it. I kind of want to move this into a Netflix topic. Matt Damon was recently on Hot Ones, great show, and he was getting into the movie industry, and you know we're kind of on talking about economics now and kind of investment, so I think maybe it's a proper transition. He had a bit of he has, because you know Matt Damon has been around since the 90s. He's heavily involved in the film industry, so he has a different perspective because not only is he an actor, but I don't know if people know this, he's also a producer. He's also a director, and he was just giving some game on the reason why, you know, it's been more of a conversation these days of how the film industry now is just blatantly just everything has to be big budget. Everything has to be making hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not choosing to make anybody's film that's just like some indie startup film. You know, you won't see those types of movies come to fruition. The lowest tier of budget you're going to see is something like A24. But they're still, I don't consider that low budget because they're still spending, what, $20 million on a film? We just saw Nope. You know, Nope is considered like low budget, right? But how much did it cost? Nope was done like $20 million. Like a filmmaker doesn't have $20 million. You won't see a Tarantino come up. You know, Tarantino's rise came from him just being on the streets of LA just making film. Christopher Nolan just making film on the streets of LA. Oh yeah, it took me 2 years to make this film because I was just using some regular camcorder and I was just, you know, working with people from work. Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, when's the last time you heard about people like that coming, those types of startup stories? Let me go ahead and play what he said because I thought it was really revealing.
I think a scenario lots of viewers can relate to is sitting on the couch on a Friday night, going through the streaming services, cycling through the movies and thinking to themselves, they're not making movies for me anymore. As somebody who's been intimately involved in movie making for 30 years, what are the macro Hollywood conditions behind that sentiment?
Well, so what happened was the DVD was a huge part of our business, of our revenue stream, and technology has just made that obsolete. And so the movies that we used to make, you could afford to not make all of your money when it played in the theater because you knew you had the DVD coming behind the release, and 6 months later you'd get all, you know, a whole nother chunk. It would be like reopening the movie almost. And when that went away, that changed the type of movies that we could make. I did this movie Behind the Candelabra, and I talked to a studio executive who explained it was a $25 million movie. I would have to put that much into print and advertising, right, to market it, what we call P&A. So I'd have to put that in P&A. So now I'm in $50 million. I have to split everything I get with the exhibitor, right, the people who own the movie theaters. So I would have to make $100 million before I got into profit. And the idea of making $100 million on a story about like this love affair between these two people, yeah, I love everyone in the movie, but that's suddenly a massive gamble in a way that it wasn't in the 1990s when they were making all those kind of movies, the kind of movies that I loved and the kind of movies that were my bread and butter.
Super revealing. He just put it in black and white. The margins are fucked up.
The margins are fucked up. The fact that the marketing is 50 mil is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But it makes sense. I mean, like the marketing, the screen time, the ad time, the print and billboards, that adds up quickly. And you want to do it in every major city and even internationally.
But this is the
that
thing,
adds up
right?
Quickly.
There's only there's a handful of major distributors. What do we have? Disney, Universal. Fox is bought. What do we have? What else? Paramount. Handful. Can't even really think of them because it's always the same. Warner Brothers. It's always the same few. These are mass conglomerate companies. These aren't just like ordinary, like, just like, we're a film company. We're just a film house, production house. No, these are major conglomerates. They produce and distribute. They're going to put out their tentpole films. The tentpole films are literally created to cover all of the loss that you make from other projects. How greedy do you have to be to not be able to take a risk and put out a certain film like a Forrest Gump, put out a certain film maybe that was big budget at the time. But how much risk are you really losing? Are you really taking by just putting out a film that is artistry? Because you're still gonna have your Marvels, you're still gonna have your Disney movies, you're still gonna have your DC films, your superhero films, you're still gonna have your Fast and Furious films that are gonna make up all of that shit back, even if you end up at even. And I get it's a business. You gotta get money because these are publicly funded companies. You gotta get the money somehow. But how much greed do you really have to not take a chance on certain films?
Greed. I mean, extreme amounts of greed. They want consistent. They want guaranteed. They want guaranteed return on investment. To them, I think doing anything creative is like buying a random penny stock or like buying a random shitcoin crypto and just praying to God. Are you going to buy the blue chips or are you going to just buy some random shit and it may take off and you may get incredible return off of it? Or do you want to just buy into something that's consistent as blue chip that you know is going to give you that return on investment? When you look at it just straight up return on investment, this is an investment. They're going to pick the winners every time. It's gotten to that point.
But what makes you think that a winner is not going to be a film about romance? We've seen time and time. I mean, the industry is built off of dramas. The industry is built off of. There was a plethora of genres back in the day, and that these movies used to make money. There's precedent set that these movies make money. If you make a good film, it's a good film. People are gonna go watch the film. Look at La La Land. Sure, it's high budget, but that's a musical about fucking romance and jazz and shit. People still see it. You're gonna get the money somehow. One of these films is going to pop off. It's not like you're just making 3 films a year. These companies are making a plethora of films. Like I mentioned, it's only a few production houses. Everyone is going in line, in step with these production houses. They have to go to them for distribution. So when you're talking about production, maybe that's a different story. But when you're talking about distribution, which is what he's talking about, when at the end of the day, you have to put movies on DVD and you have to exhibit it to a plethora of other people, not just through people that see it in theaters. So then he talks about the disruption of media. Of streaming in media. And if technology is the thing that's defeating you, why wouldn't you just, and you do kind of see it because that's the reason why you see the same production houses that I'm mentioning, are the same conglomerates are making their own streaming platforms. But then we see at the same time, they're losing massive amount of money doing those Warner Brothers is laying off so many people because their streaming platform sucks. We were talking about CNN. I mean, that's still under Warner Brothers. We were talking about CNN.
Paramount Plus is ass. I've never seen garbage like that.
Peacock and things like that, BET Plus and things like that. You're still gonna put the stuff on streaming. You're still gonna lose money. So at the end of the day, it's like, why don't you just come up with some type of arbitrage and defeat streaming by just delivering the movies to people directly? That's the idea that I had. Do you think that you could poke holes in that?
I honestly don't think you can poke holes in that. I don't even understand why they're not thinking outside the box on that one.
Because you still have your catalog. It's not like you can't. If you're NBC and you have a major, you've made so much shit. You can easily just lease The Office to Netflix for however many years and make a contract with them and get and mitigate the risk that you're taking on one end. And maybe they don't want to do it that micro. maybe it's too micro for them, and maybe I'm just not in that business mind state to say like, oh well, if I'm taking a risk on this one particular film that's going to cost me $50 million to make, and it's just a romance flick. How much did he say? 100 million?
100 million.
And maybe it's too much for me to take $100 million chance on making this little romance flick, but I can make $100 million by leasing out The Office to Netflix easily. So like, what is that? What is that? I have Grey's Anatomy. I have all these different types of shows. Like, why wouldn't I take that risk? Is it because they don't care about the art at the end of the day? Which is, I think, the real reason.
They do not care about the art. They could care less about the art.
They care about the money. And I get it, because it's a money-making stream. This is literally a money-making stream. This is all that it's for. But if, like, you're in an industry in order to provide quality. So I don't understand.
Dude, MC... it goes back into MCU movies are just, they seem to get less inspired over time, and they already were kind of just beat 'em up blockbusters, but they're getting even less inspired because the money is just getting so consistent. They don't give a fuck. They're gonna put out something that's passable. They know you're gonna slop it up, and they're gonna get their money. They don't care. It's not about the art. It's just not.
So then that proves the point even more, because you know you have your tent poles. You know you're gonna get the money from that side. If you put out a DC flick, you could put out some bullshit. I'm not saying that this movie is bullshit. I'm talking about Joker. That movie was really good. Movie made over $1 billion, I believe. It had to have made at least 800 million. I don't know if you want to fact check that or not. But you have a movie like that where you could just put out something that's just original IP that you have just in store. You could put that out every single year. You could put out a Joker flick every single year.
Yeah,
no one's gonna get tired of it.
So it made $1 billion.
Everyone's gonna eat it up. So you have your coverage. If I'm talking about my own stock portfolio, and I know I'm gonna get gains from Apple. I know I'm gonna get gains from Microsoft. I know I'm gonna get gains from Alphabet. Why wouldn't I just dabble in some cryptocurrency and potentially make more gains? Why wouldn't I?
I wouldn't gamble everything, but a project here or there, yeah, I can see it.
I'm not saying gamble on everything.
A project where you made a surplus off your consistent one. So you're like, all right, we could take 100K. We're okay with taking a $50 million loss to potentially make a crazy amount of money. You know, but we've made so much money this year.
You don't have to make a crazy amount of money. You just need to cover your losses. You need to be in profit. Because they make bullshit all the time. That's the weird thing, is that they make bullshit all the time.
They make bullshit. I think they make bullshit that they actually think is going to succeed. Like, you could think, you know, I'm not speaking bad about Cardano. It's just the first thing that popped in my mind. Like, you know, people love Cardano. They see it as a blue chip. We follow investor Ian Dunlap. He thinks if it's not Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's ass. What if Cardano just died overnight? And you were so sure it was a blue chip? See, that's the same thing with movies that they invest in. They know it's consistent. It's been around a while. It has a great backing to it. And it still could fail. We see that now. It's still a gamble either way, whether the movie's going to succeed and the project comes together.
Exactly.
They just rather gamble on something that's more likely to hit and it has an already set fan base.
But yeah, but if you're fucking talking to Matt Damon is not gonna put out some bullshit. I know it happens, but you're not willing to risk money on a Matt Damon flick. Like, it's not just anybody that can go out and spend $50 million on a movie.
Yeah.
So if
I didn't know he was balling like that. Like, I knew he was balling.
Oh, it's Matt Damon, crazy. Bro. It's Matt Damon. So if you're a Matt Damon and you're working in tandem with Matt Damon, seriously, you can't just put out something that you think is gonna switch up the vibe. Put out something but it's still perceived as quality. Like, how much do you not trust the consumer? And then the consumer's gonna fuck you in the ass. Because at the end of the day, we're gonna get tired of this shit. People are already tired of Marvel. We're getting tired of Marvel. Because then they start putting out bullshit.
They're putting out some ass. Like, even She-Hulk episode 1 was like the first Marvel anything that felt like pre-Endgame. Kind of just I don't know why, I just felt like there's a little bit more heart and love in it. It feels like the movies are losing the heart. Like, even though they were making money and it was corporate greed in there, of course. It felt like the Infinity War ones had some heart. Like the Infinity Saga movies had heart. Phase 4, they just went straight corporate. We're going to bog them down with TV shows. We're going to bog them down with movies. We're just going to constantly bombard them with shit. We don't care about the quality. I would have been okay with half as many Phase 4 films if they all had the same kind of love and quality. And I think most people would feel the same way.
And then you can always re-release things. Avatar. You can always just re-release something. People are going to go see. You can make your money in different ways. I understand that it's not like they're just going to get a return on Avatar being released. But what are the odds that they're not going to make money back? Like, you have different avenues and stuff in order to make money. It's not like you're just going to pick some bullshit. I just don't get it.
Toys, man. The toys, don't the toys make more than the movies?
Yeah, but if you're doing something like romance, like I'm talking about certain genres, like if you're doing something like a comedy or a romance movie or a horror movie, it's kind of like you have to thrillers. Like, when's the last time we saw like good thrillers? Like, seriously, it's just kind of getting annoying at this point. Anything else on that one?
I think that's it, man. I just think every once in a while you get something ambitious and fresh, kind of like Everything Everywhere. That was a really dope movie. We get those like once or twice a year, and I think that's kind of going to be the thing going forward.
I just need some type of innovation in that film industry.
Innovation is more risk, which they're not willing to take.
Yeah, it's too bad because the consumer is going to bite you in the ass eventually, bro. It's either you're going to get in line, or you're going to make money as much money as possible while you're able to make the money, and then eventually people are going to be like, oh, what the fuck is this? Why am I watching Iron Man 19? Like, yeah. Eventually people are going to be like, I'm not watching this anymore. We could touch on the Matt Reeves thing because Matt Reeves signed a deal today with Warner Brothers. It's a first look deal. So essentially what it is like they get the first look at anything that he comes up with. Matt Reeves got most of his acclaim from, and that's the first time I heard about Matt Reeves was when he was doing Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He did the last prequels of Planet of the Apes franchise. But his most recent Batman flick really is what got him pretty up there in the media and in popularity. So I guess we can say that DC is completely just they're all over the place. I don't know what they're doing.
No kind of plan. No, they don't have a Feige, unfortunately.
What happens with the DCEU? Is the DCEU just over now? Because I know we have the Shazam movie coming out, and I know we have Black Adam coming out, but like after that, and then they have a Flash movie.
Releasing just like disjointed films that are technically in the universe, but it's all aimless. It's not building anything. It's releasing shit.
I thought that their plan was to do a DCEU. And now they're just saying, Matt Reeves, we need you to make movies and TV shows that are standalones. I mean, he's going to make a Batman 2. He's talking about writing...
that's a whole trilogy. That's apparently supposed to be a trilogy, but I don't think... What's his name? Robert Pattinson? I don't think he's down for a trilogy. There's rumors that Henry Cavill is apparently going to MCU, which would be kind of funny. That they steal him away.
Not really, because DCU is over. DCU is over.
He literally is going to play... MCU Superman. That's literally what he's going to do. Hyperion is literally their version of Superman. So I mean, people will, that would be hype. Hyperion appears, he flies, and he has laser vision, and it's Henry Cavill, and he literally just looks like a ripoff of the Man of Steel. I would like that. That's the rumor for Quantumania. I think it's Quantumania.
I'm very upset with DC.
Man. I'm not a DC. Ever since I was a kid, I hated DC. Like, I don't hate it anymore. Like, I think I've watched DC properties I like. I kind of like Batman and Joker and like Teen Titans and Young Justice. I've seen some episodes.
Their IP is better than Marvel's, in my opinion.
I think that's cap.
Well, if you're doing a comparison,
they're solid.
If you're doing a comparison, what characters? If you're doing a versus, what characters on Marvel's side beats out DC?
I get what you're doing. Like, if you're doing Avengers, like classic Avengers versus Justice League, I definitely think the classic Justice League is more iconic. I cannot deny that.
And they're cooler.
I really can. I'm biased because I really don't like. I think DC is overpowered as hell. That's why I don't like One Punch Man. But I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, they're definitely more iconic as a whole. But Marvel, like, in this totality and all its stories and characters, completely takes a doo-doo on DC, and I stand on that.
I mean, they have like.
Remember, but that's the tough, bro. I've been in so many arguments. When I was a kid, I went to junior lifeguard, and like there was a whole bunch of people like in the stands after we got done like practicing swimming in a Dudes looked like they were about to fight. People were about to. My homies looked like he was about to cry. We were like in the 5th grade. Marvel versus DC. I swear to God, that's a real serious and touchy subject among comic book nerds. And I was always a Marvel guy. You could not tell me. You never could tell me DC is better than Marvel. You could never do it.
Still to this day.
Still to
Take
this
out
day.
MCU. Just I'm looking character.
I'm taking out. This is before MCU was really in its stride, dude. This is like back when it started. We all we had was Iron Man 1 and 2 at this point. I'm sure.
Who's the quintessential Marvel character? I'll put it this way, because we have Superman and we have Batman. Who do you put up against Superman and Batman?
The quintessential Marvel character, I say they can fuck up. That can trade blows is Spider-Man.
No,
without
I'm not.
question.
I'm talking about just in terms of just like cool aesthetic, powers, story.
Cool aesthetic. I think Spider-Man is cooler than all of them. Superman is boring as hell. I'm
Superman
sorry.
is dope.
Superman is boring as hell to me. I'm sorry. He's boring as shit to me. It bores me to sleep. It really
You didn't
does.
like Man of Steel? Like you don't like Superman movies? Like good Superman
I hate
movies?
Superman. I do not like Superman, not whatsoever.
That's ridiculous. Batman? You think Spider-Man is better than Batman?
Yeah,
What?
but not by much. Not by much. Not by much. They're both up there because I really like Batman. Like I really like Batman a lot, but I like Spider-Man a little bit more. Just a
Martian
little bit.
Manhunter? Just the aesthetic of him.
Could give a fuck about Martian. That's not even on the radar.
Green Lantern?
He's alright.
Who's the Wonder Woman of the MCU? Captain Marvel?
Scarlet Witch.
Come on. Come on. Are we really having this discussion?
You're talking about just how iconic they are, not how boring they are. They're iconic. Like they're iconic in their design and their name, but like when you really like look at these characters, Marvel has deeper stories, in my opinion.
The only thing that's
Cooler
cooler about
characters.
Marvel is the X-Men. And maybe the Fantastic Four are kind of cool. But the X-Men are like, they're brilliant. That's a brilliant idea. Love all of them. Magneto, Professor X, Wolverine, love all of them. Those are great characters. So you could put those characters up against some DC characters, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. They take that one. Marvel runs with that one, sure. But just in general, like the main characters on the DC side are so much better than the main characters on Marvel side, in my opinion.
I guess you can argue it. I always thought DC was lame as hell. I don't know. Maybe it's just the representation in the movies, but like Green Lantern was lame to me. Superman was lame to me. Wonder Woman was lame to me. I'm serious. Only one that was cool, was kind of cool, was Flash, and even he's kind of lame to me, but he's cool. He's kind of cool. And Batman. Those are the only ones. And then Teen Titan characters, of course, I love.
Teen Titans are cool.
That's it. That's all. That's it for DC.
And then their villains, like Batman villains just alone are just
and
sick.
Joker, and like Harley Quinn, I think are
Lex
cool.
Luthor, like really? I don't. What's the dude's name? Darkseid. Like these characters are awesome.
Darkseid's cool, but Thanos got way more clout than Darkseid. Let's not even get started on that.
And he does. Now,
I know that is MC because of MCU.
It's all
But-
it's all because
but
of
people
MCU.
I hear Thanos reference every day.
Man, if
Without
DC,
fail.
so let me ask you this question: if DC was able to have the level of quality of films, I know it kind of defeats the purpose because it's like that's too much of an ideal hypothetical. But follow me if you can. If DC put out an equal film for every Marvel Cinematic Universe film, who do you think would be the most popular right now? Who would be controlling
Marvel.
the superheroes?
Well,
You still think so?
If they're putting out like movies that are on the level of this latest Batman, it'd probably be DC.
If you have imagine a great.
If they're putting out a movie universe based off that universe, that new Batman movie, and it was that kind of gritty, it was grittier than them trying to be funny, they're trying to be serious, I think it would be bigger.
That's
to a
what I'm
certain
saying.
degree.
I rest my case.
But that's not because I like DC or think the characters are cool, but I definitely think they're kind of getting a stride in those kind of grittier tone, and they should stick with it. They should go for it, I think.
That's always been the move. That's what Zack Snyder tried to do, but for some reason they have creative differences with Zack Snyder. I don't know what that is. Did you like the Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse?
Bro, I never even really watched those movies, bro. My mom watched the the Snyder Cut, bro. I don't like DC. The only DC I watch is Batman. Literally. And Joker. Anything Batman related. That is the only DC anything I even care about is Batman. I think Batman is cool.
Is it the Dark Knight trilogy or is it the Iron Man trilogy?
Of course the Dark Knight trilogy.
Is it the Dark Knight trilogy or is it the Captain America trilogy?
That's tough, but it's probably going to go to Batman.
Is it the Dark Knight trilogy? And I'm just naming one character. Is it the Dark Knight trilogy or is it the Thor trilogy?
But you already see that wasn't even like.
Come on, bro! Like this is just facts.
That wasn't a fair one.
This is just facts.
See that, and that's not even a fair comparison because this is not DC. We're not talking about cinematic universes. We're talking about a focused movie directed by a talented director versus a cinematic universe.
If you had
that's not even fair.
If you had a Teen Titans movie that was just sick as hell, is it going to be Teen Titans or is it going to be Guardians of the Galaxy?
Probably Teen Titans.
If you had Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel flick, which one is better?
See, but I think Captain.
Like, come on.
It probably Wonder Woman actually.
Exactly. I mean, it's just easy. That's the easy debate. See, the cinematic, or not the cinematic universe, but the DC characters on one side are just so like their main characters are just like so impactful. They're just so impactful. The stories are just that good. It's just easy for me. It's easy for me. I mean, I love Spider-Man. Like, I love Marvel characters. I grew up with Marvel characters more often in my life than DC characters. But it's just much easier to make a good DC story because their characters are just better.
I'm sorry, bro.
No, I love Spider-Man.
Stomps on DC. Spider-Man alone, I think, destroys DC.
I could have said that. Like, what do you think? Dark Knight trilogy or Spider-Man, original Spider-Man trilogy?
Original Spider-Man. And the Dark Knight trilogy is objectively better. But in terms of clout and like nostalgia and just like impact, it has to be Spider-Man.
That's a tough one, but
it's a tough one.
I personally like the Spider-Man.
What's objectively better is Dark Knight is objectively better, but there's so many other things going for Spider-Man that it could compete, if not edge it out a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like Spider-Man is one of my favorites for sure. Speaking of controversy in terms of debates of who's the best, Rolling Stone had a magazine cover. Rolling Stone had a magazine cover that they came out with that called Harry Styles the quote-unquote new king of pop. They didn't call him the king of pop. That title belongs to somebody else. We already know who that is. But they called him the new king of pop. An uproar began. For good reason. How dare they? How dare they compare?
This is just a mockery of somebody else's legacy. It's just, we don't even really have to go too deep. It's just some bullshit. That's just bullshit. That's just cap. That's just trying to erase a legend's legacy.
That's like if they said LeBron James is the new Black Mamba.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, how dare they? Does a discussion even need to be had?
Didn't they try it with Justin Timberlake, like in the early 2000s, saying the same thing?
I don't know. That's just terrible, though. That's just terrible. No one compares to Michael Jackson. I could just start playing Michael Jackson songs right now, but we already know them. Like, I don't even think that there needs to be a conversation had about it. I don't even know what they were thinking. But Rolling Stone has been doing this. Like, they're so irrelevant that the only way that they can do this shit is to come out with like crazy hot takes. Like when they released a few months back when they had the 100 greatest songs, and they put Aretha Franklin, Respect as the #1 song of all time. It's like, what? Or how they had what was it? I don't remember the number of rappers, but they had like their rapper rank list, and it's just like, what are you talking about? So that's what they do. They talk about shock jocks. People want to call us shock jocks.
Which is ridiculous.
That's a shock jockey magazine. Who fucking releases magazines anymore?
Who reads magazines, even digitally?
I don't know anybody that
that's
does.
Definitely for. I mean, that's definitely the audience is people who grew up reading magazines and they just
Who reads
still
the
wanna read
Rolling
it digitally.
Stone?
I don't know anybody who reads the Rolling Stone. Not a single person.
But they're still in business. How? When did they fail? Ugh. What's the new Rolling Stone like? Like double XL?
I don't know. I
They
have
only
no
do rap.
clue.
They only do rap, but like I don't even. That's just weird to me. I don't even know who. Like I don't know who's allowed to come up with this type of shit, bro. Like I don't know how you come up with that type of shit. Speaking of music, Nicki Minaj had a couple of groundbreaking feats that she just had in this last single of hers. She was able to score her first #1 solo career single ever. Which I think that if we just take a pause, her first solo career single that goes #1 ever.
Which is kind of surprising.
Kinda?
I feel like she's had so many hits that you would think would be #1.
And then I was like taking it back at it. I was like, what the fuck? Like, first solo career song. And then I had to think about the fine print, and it's like solo career single. So she's had career singles that obviously reached #2, #3, #4, whatever. But this is solo career single. So when you're talking about like when she hops on different types of songs, like with Doja Cat, or when she hops on different songs with like Ariana Grande and things like that, those songs go #1. But those are featuring singles. Those aren't solo career singles. So then that kind of makes sense. She also has the first #1 she also has the first #1 single of a female rapper since Lauryn Hill in 1998 for That Thing. Doo-wop,
This
That Thing.
doesn't even sound right. Maybe I'm missing something.
That one sounds proper though, because I can't think of another rapper who was a woman who had like a career like a Lauryn Hill, like a Lil Kim, like a Nicki Minaj. The one you'd think of Cardi B, maybe Cardi B could have hit that plateau. But who else other than them? Like that's it. You're not going to talk about Iggy Azalea. Like who else? Meg Thee Stallion makes records that chart, but she's not hitting #1.
The one I would think who was hitting #1 is Nicki for sure in her prime. So it's kind of that's why I keep saying I'm surprised. Like
It's almost like they kind of.
What about Anaconda? Like
#2. That hit #2.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's the only thing it could be is that she just kept hitting #2 constantly.
It seems political,
Or
nah.
#2 or #3 constantly.
How is that possible?
It's almost like they were snubbing it. They were snubbing
Doesn't
her
it seem
from
like it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see at the time, like what was the #1 charting songs during those times? Like Anaconda was a huge song. She had nothing off of Pink Friday. I know that was like her big. That might have been her debut album, Pink Friday. I know that that was like her big. That's when she rose to prominence during that Pink Friday era. But she didn't have a single song off of Pink Friday that reached #1. It's kind of weird. And that kind of speaks to her greatness. The fact that we just assumed, like, oh yeah, like that's kind of like, or maybe not, but it's like, oh yeah, she definitely has a championship under her belt. Like, of course, she's one of the best of all time. That's just weird to me.
It's like the whole thing with like Leo. It's like they're giving it to her now, like on like Revenant.
Ooh,
Like,
good one.
should have got it a
one,
long time ago.
That's
And
a
they're
great
just like,
comp.
you got it now. We won't skew it this time. We'll let you have it. Is that how it's determined? Is it
It
just raw
seems
stats?
political, yo. It does. It really does.
Is it
It's
raw
kinda like,
stats? Like, is it just off raw numbers, or do they actually just pick the list? I've never understood that.
but those numbers are just like, because now it's kind of like weird because you have like streaming farms and things like that. I know they try to crack down on it, but like, how do you count a stream? Like, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. It's much more complex nowadays because of streaming. It kind of seems like they would cuck her. It really does. Just to say like, oh no, like we can't have Nicki Minaj up there. We can't have Nicki Minaj up there. Not yet. We can't have her up there. So then 13 years later, you're like, oh yeah, finally like Nicki Minaj. Oh, give it to her. Give it to her. For this song? Did you hear the song?
I haven't even heard the song, bro. I don't listen to Nicki, bro. I don't think I'm the target audience.
For this song. So I'm a super freak, super freak, super freaky. I thought the song was whack. I didn't like the song. But it's like, it's that pop shit that she does every now and then. She has an album coming out. There's a few people with albums coming out.
All right, everybody. This is the closeout. This is This is Wednesday's episode of Top Tier Podcast. It was a pleasure. Hope you guys had fun. And we will see you guys on Monday's episode.
Yes, sir. Keep it
Nice
top tier.
rest of your week. Stay safe. Take care, everyone. All right.